I'm so sorry. I've been the slap from last night has done something to my stomach, and I had to poop like 7 times today.
Oh
So
no, that
I
sucks.
yeah, it's I just got you get caught up in
I
like the
knew you
weight.
were a big Will Smith and Chris Rock fan, so it must be really intense to see your two heroes battling on the public stage.
Can I get your? Did you watch it live?
No, I didn't. I didn't watch it live. I actually went to bed early last night, and then I heard my wife scream and woke up, and she was like, "He slapped him."
Dude, I saw it live. I had a date last night and I canceled the date because I'm gonna be on the road so much in April that I was like, "Oh, I just need a night off, do
Yeah,
nothing, smoke some pot, order some shit food. I'll watch the
yeah.
Oscars. Why not? Why not? See Amy Schumer fail. Like, why not?
I don't think she failed.
She did fine. She did fine.
I will say this: she did not fail as much as I would have failed. Because that is the worst fucking gig.
Yeah.
Having to fucking do stand up, any kind of anything in front of that many people. You're in front of like everyone. You fuck up, the risk is so great. I don't know what they pay you for that shit, but the risk of really truly eating shit. If you can just get out of there, you got some laughs. You know what I mean? You got some laughs. Everything's cool. You
Yeah.
won, as far as
Yeah.
I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You know,
And they got their laughs. The beginning was a little rocky.
the beginning was rocky.
Amy had some funny jokes during like her little monologue thing off to the side. I thought that was pretty funny. And then the rest of the night, I was like, okay, this isn't that bad. There's some cheesy stuff. Wanda was doing some cheesy shit, but I get it. And then the thing with Regina, like like manhandling all the guys. I was like, really, in 2022, after what we've just been through, like I don't even know can we do this?
I just guess the bar that we've set for that event has been set pretty low, right? Did you see the last one? The last
Yeah.
one was like some kind of surreal, absurdist take on the Oscars or something. Like it was so weird in the midst of the pandemic to watch the last one. It's in a train station. I'm like enough of a conspiracy theorist to be like, is this a message? Are they sending us some fucking message? Are they all about to leave the planet? Is that what they're saying? That they're at the train station and they're gonna go? Like it's over?
Why is Glenn Close doing the butt by EU with Lil Rel? What is going on here?
It was so confusing, and so like and especially like in the midst of everything that was happening, so weird. You're like, oh, I guess we died, and like this is like a death hallucination I'm having, like my brain trying to emulate what the Oscars is, but it's confused, so it's mashing it in with train stations. Whereas this one, it's like they're all kind of back to where they were, and it just wasn't it didn't. Yeah, there's always in the Oscars like bits where you're like, what the fuck is this? Or just moments where like they cut off that poor sound guy's audio for what? Yeah. He just wanted to say thank you. It was literally going to be a second. They cut him off, and then you're like, well, something important must be coming, and it's like an homage to James Bond. Yeah. This guy fucking worked his ass off to make music for Dune, and he just wanted to thank his kids and his family. Like, no, fuck you, man. We got to do James Bond next. You know how people love James Bond.
And by the way, being such a fan of music and watching the James Bond montage, I get Live and Let Die. It's a great song. 100% you should have played Nobody Does It Better by Carly Simon.
Yeah.
Death. It's just showing all the cool stuff and just him still fighting. I was like, what a waste of a perfect music moment to do something super aggressive and like fucking kill you. I'm gonna kill you. Gah, 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 gah. I was just like, all right, dude. But then the smack.
But look what we're doing right now. We're talking about the fucking Oscars.
No, they
did something right, didn't they? They figured it out. Somebody figured it out. And they were like, did they say to Will Smith, you want Best Picture? Okay. Yeah. Well, we have a little job for you to do. I want to show you this James Bond montage because you're going to be like the James Bond of the fucking Oscars, and you're going to slap the shit out of Chris Rock because we wrote a joke for him that he's going to say, and you're going to go there and slap him, and you'll get the best actor, and you will basically resurrect the Oscars. That's my theory on what happened.
So Will Smith is a Manchurian candidate.
If I had to roll the dice, man, it's like, I read all these articles about how their numbers had significantly dropped, how like the benefit of winning an Oscar was in the old days, it would really boost ticket sales. But now the Oscar bump is just not where it used to be. And on top of that, people are like, people just aren't paying attention anymore, because it's like everything's schizophrenic now with all the content out there. What even is a movie? We're wondering what the fuck a movie means. And so anyway, I read all this analysis of it, and these are the people who make movies. So they know what the fuck they're doing. Like, they know how to entertain, right? And so if I had to roll the dice on that being an accident or a semi-accident or like some crazy, who the fuck is the Academy? It could be the CIA for all we know. We don't know what they're up to.
Yeah.
They could have hypnotized Will Smith. You don't know. They could have called him in for a few meetings. He thinks he had a normal meeting, but they just put him in a temporary coma, planted into his head. You're going to smack Chris Rock.
You know, it's funny that you're saying all that, because there's stuff online saying that like Will Smith like donated millions of dollars to open some Scientology school, even though it's not called a Scientology school, but they do teach Dianetics in there.
Yeah.
And one of the things in Scientology is that you embarrass people that embarrass you by using physical slaps. And
shit.
And I mean, this is look, I'm going down a fucking rabbit hole on Twitter right now. Yeah. But it's like, I was like, ooh, this actually does make sense, because you could see Tom Cruise doing it. He does it more verbally, the way that he's like, you're fucking not wearing your mask. This is Mission Impossible. And it's like a way of taking back your dominance. I just have to ask before we even get to the record, but do you think, because you've been in comedy for so long, you're respected, you're hysterical. Do you think this changes the way we, one, tell jokes, and then two, is it okay if somebody can come then go up? Is this like a free for all to hit us?
No, this is the thing. Like all these, all the comics are like, oh my God, people are gonna get on stage and start slapping us now. I don't feel no, that's not gonna fucking happen. And my wife was like, nervous. She's like, now look what they're gonna do to comedians. It's like I've worked at the comics store for a long time, seen many comedians get slapped. It's not like this is a new fucking phenomena. It's just like, and it's not like, the only difference here is that usually when the comic is getting slapped, it's like they've already been bombing their ass off. It's a shitty set. Then they're trying to dig into someone in the crowd. They've lost the crowd. And then some drunk attacks, or post set, they were attacking some Nazi's fucking girlfriend or something. And then they get knocked out. Not justified at all fucked up. It's just, in this case, it's like, whoa, hold on a second. Like that, and Chris Rock's response was a perfect response. And I think the way he carried on was amazing. Like that was the most incredible comic professionalism I've ever fucking seen. It's a nightmare to get slapped for a joke by Will Smith. I mean, that's a nightmare. He probably looked at that joke, was like, I don't know. It seemed like a joke. He was like, are we going to do this? And he's like, fine, I'll fucking do it. And then Will Smith gets on stage and gentleman slaps him, because that was a gentleman slap. That was like, what was weird about that was, it's like, how many people has Will Smith slapped? Because that didn't seem like an angry, scared, freaked out slap. That seemed like he goes to slapping class. That was like, he strutted up there.
He held back.
Yeah, he held back. He had this weird way of like strutting off post slap. Did you see the way he put the slap hand in his pocket? Kind of struts off. It's like, this is a practiced slap. Is Scientology teaching this? Is this like a, because if I got angry enough, I was going to go on stage at the Oscars and slap Chris Rock, I'd be shaking and like crying and all, like, you know what I mean? But he did like that's a slap after you challenge someone to a duel.
Dual slap. Yeah.
Yeah, that's a dual slap.
But it looked more vicious, because the picture that everybody's using right now is the full follow through. Like you can see like he's fully extended, and like Chris has that like wince on his face. I would say that picture is just as epic now as Muhammad Ali, the famous one where he's like over top of the guy like that. Yeah. This is, dude, because and more people saw it live. I saw it live last night, and I was just like, I put my guitar down, and I was just like, I was like, no, that didn't. And then you go on Twitter, and I'm like trying to pull it up, and nothing's coming up. They're still talking about something from 2016, a joke that he made back then about Jada. And then finally it like popped up, and then it was just like all the unreleased stuff and just the unedited, and it's
How many people put their guitar down at that moment? If you had to guess, like all over the planet, how many guitars went down at that moment? What did we got? 100,000, 500,000 guitars went down.
Let me tell you something, dude. There were a lot of people at the Guitar Center in Union Square last night buying guitars with me. So I'll be at least 7. There were at least 7 guys in the New York tri-state area that all are playing their new acts that were suddenly like, wait, didn't Will Smith just smack Chris Roy? Hold on, let me put this on the new holster I just fucking installed.
How many people were getting slapped at that moment? You think about stuff like it's in a thing like that. So many people are watching, and you know, like would you guess like 3,000 people at that moment were getting slapped by their friends or partners? And like we're like, whoa, holy shit! Wow, this is an awful secret.
This is insane.
Yeah.
All right, let's digress. We have to talk about so much. Leave all that in, Peter. Speaking of slaps, this album slaps that we were about to talk about. Now, I want to talk about a moment that you and I shared together, and then that's why I appreciate that you're doing this record. Is like, I don't know if you remember this. We were getting ready for JFL 2000 and I think it's 2015.
I remember.
And we were in line, me, you, and my drummer Nick, and we were talking about, and you were just going off about meditation, and you told me it's like, you know, if you want to, like, I don't know what started it, but we suddenly were having a deep conversation in LAX in the line to check into American or Air Canada, and you started talking about transcendental meditation and how important it is and how it's
I think I was talking about just meditation, because I never did transcendental meditation, though I do have friends who do it and swear by it.
So okay, so you were, for some reason I remember you talking about transcendental, because that was what sent me off into a crash course, not immediately, but in 2017 when I started doing it. And I always thought about it about that conversation, because you were talking about how important meditation is.
Okay.
And then, of course, I'm jumping many moons. And then when our booker told us that you were going to do this record, because you were going to come on for a different album, unfortunately it just didn't work out from timing. And then you do this, which I knew Pink Moon. I had heard maybe another song off of like the Garden State soundtrack, but this was the first time I had ever listened to Nick Drake from start to finish, which this is a fucking easy listen. This is coming at,
I think it's 28 minutes.
28 minutes and 22 seconds. And this record is 100% it's just like the way you experience after listening to this, a calm, of love, of like gratitude, of just so much, especially knowing this dude's story.
Yeah.
It's like I just finished like an hour long or like a week long meditation.
Wow.
Like quiet. It was so powerful to me. So tell me, how did you get into this record? How did Nick Drake come into your life?
At college, I think that's how many people run into Nick Drake in college, liberal arts school. Somebody like, this is when I'd only been listening to like Pink Floyd, The Grateful Dead. I still am listening to those albums, but I've always been kind of musically illiterate. But, you know, one of the cool things about, especially in those days before the algorithm was in charge of giving us like musical recommendations, is you would have these moments with people where they'd introduce music to you and give you a CD. And I can remember listening to this particular album and just recognizing like how incredible it was. And then also like feeling weirdly voyeuristic or something, like just hearing how tortured Nick Drake seems to be in the way he's like singing this. You can hear like the pain in his voice. This was the last album he recorded. He committed suicide 2 years later. Yeah. So like you're listening to somebody, and already people were just saying he's like, you know, he was sort of a zombie, like you could be hanging out with him and he just wasn't there. You know, that apparently for this album, it seemed like his mood had gone up a little bit, which is actually one of the things you have to worry about with super depressed people, is they, when they've like finally decided to kill themselves, their mood improves a little bit. So people are like, he wasn't depressed at this time, you know? And what was really weird about it is he had been so fucking depressed, and like just in his, I think he's living with his parents in You know,
Yeah.
so he'd been so depressed, he'd been kind of incapable of doing anything. And then all of a sudden he went on a vacation, and he came back and contacted, I can't remember who the producer was, contacted this guy. And was like, hey, I want to record something. And so they recorded it over 2 nights, which is crazy. 2 half sessions, the whole album.
Well, there's not much to this record. I mean, if you think about it, like we just said, the time's 28 minutes. There's 11 songs. There's songs on there that are 1:37, 1:23.
Yeah.
They all kind of have the same vibe as the opening track, which I'm assuming he probably wrote first, let's just say, and to kind of like just continue into that the rest of that vibe throughout the record. I mean, these songs aren't complicated. There's not many changes to it. And there is this underlying, message, which is like, you can say it's about love. You could say it's about isolation. You could say it's about,
it's
detachment.
biblical. It's biblical. He's, the pink moon, it's one of the signs of the end. It's an interesting decision. The whole thing is, to me, definitely just to me, a commentary on, like, it's a commentary on whether or not to stay alive or kill yourself. It's the, which on his, when they found his body next to his bed was this book called The Myth of Sisyphus by Camus. And Camus was an existentialist philosopher who really worked with that idea of like, why stay alive? What is the point of even being
ridiculous
alive?
It's ridiculous. Where everything we're experiencing is ridiculous. The only thing that is really that
absurdity.
We have certainty is that life is absurd. So the only thing that's not absurd is just killing yourself.
Well, or finding a reason, because there's, according to Camus, there are other ways to kill yourself than just kill yourself. There's philosophical suicide, which was to like try to take some kind of cheap way out by rationalizing the absurdity of existence. Like, you can, because once you're confronted with this thing that I think he's dealing with in the songs in this album, or some of them at least, which is this sort of like the fraudulence of society or civilization itself, the sort of cheap quality to everything, a general sense of like, none of this shit really matters at all. So what am I even fucking doing here? And so this was Camus. Like, first you had to even get to that place, and then when you got to that place, you're gonna feel a kind of revulsion, a sort of, I think and again, I'm not as familiar with Sartre as I am with Camus, but I think he called it nausea, a kind of yawning sense of despair, and what the fuck even is this, and why am I even interacting with it? And then once you're confronted with that, you can decide if you're gonna stay alive or die, which is why the myth of Sisyphus is so beautiful, because here's why to stay alive, here's a reason to stay alive. And it's really dark, his reasoning behind staying alive from other people's perspective, but once you get down to it, there's a kind of it's a sort of rebellion to stay alive. Like, even in the face of all this fucking absurdity, I'm still going to be myself. I'm not going to be destroyed by the absurdity. I'm going to maintain who I am. I'm the great existential rebel. And that's why I use Sisyphus as the model for it, because Sisyphus shoving that fucking rock up the hill and watching it go back down, it's the most pointless activity you could ever do. And yet Sisyphus finds a way to be happy in that absurdity. So Pink Moon, the title fucking track, is really interesting in that it's an apocalyptic song saying, watch out, this pink moon is coming for all of you. No matter how important you think you are, you're all going to fucking die. You're all going to face whatever this thing is. And then the other crazy thing about it is pink moon is the first full moon in April. So it's a representation of spring, resurrection, resurgence, things coming back. And I think this fucking album is like exploring that weird, I don't know, yin yang, the polarity between the simultaneous horror and beauty of existence.
Dude, you couldn't have put this better to describe what this record causes inside of me. Because if you want this to be a love album, this is a love album, and just the most beautiful thing you've ever heard. To, we don't know who he's singing about, to his life, to gratitude, whatever. Or if you want to find the sadness in this, this is one of the saddest records. Parasite, fucking just I mean, killed me. I mean, I can't tell you how many songs on this record like either choked me up or brought
Yeah.
me to actual tears because it's just like I'm hearing this. And it's so funny you brought up Sisyphus, and that is like with my career in what I'm doing in stand up right now. It was like you start having these moments where you're like, am I being myself on stage? Am I really doing what I'm supposed to be doing on
Yeah.
stage? I feel like I have moments of it. And then there's moments I walk into the Comedy Cellar and I feel like an imposter and I go up there and I do okay when I know I'm better than okay if I'm being true to myself. And then it was like, fuck this. I'm going to go up and have fun because this is so ridiculous. Everything we're doing, the fact that I'm going up on stage trying
Yeah.
to make people laugh that are complete
Yeah.
strangers.
Sure.
So go up and make sure that I have fun and fuck all of them because they're all replaceable. I'm not replaceable. I'm not this comic. I'm not that comic. I'm me. So be me 100%. And then once I did that and started saying how ridiculous this is, then you start really finding yourself on stage
Yeah.
and doing exactly what you want to do.
Yeah, and that Nick Drake didn't want to go on stage. That's another. He didn't like to perform. He didn't want to fucking perform. And this album was like his final, like another middle finger to the world because he did all the backing tracks and everything himself. It's all him and this producer. So like by the time he was so depressed, by the time he got to this album, he's like, I don't want to be with anyone but you. And then he fucking records it after midnight. You record this is like being recorded like in the dead of fucking night with depressed Nick Drake singing essentially a suicide note, which I think is what this album could be viewed as a kind of his contemplation of whether or not he should engage with the world anymore, and a final sort of decision is reached, I think, in the last track. And again, that's I think that is what is so incredible about this album and other albums like it is you have on one level, it's the most beautiful thing you ever heard. And you could be sitting at a cafe, drinking coffee with your friend, with this playing in the background and think, this is so romantic. It's so beautiful, so sweet. And then when you look at the fucking lyrics and realize what he's actually saying and realize this is someone who's about to who's going to kill themselves in 2 years, theoretically. No one's quite sure if he did. I think he did. And then also, like, this is not just a person who's going to kill themselves. It's a person who is explaining why and pointing out all of this like hypocrisy in the world, according to him, and a general sort of like recognition of I think what he considered to be a failure of civilization, all of it wrapped up in biblical references, man, like Things Behind the Sun. The lyric in there is the whole thing is like talking about fraudulence, the fraudulence of like the fraudulence of people who you depend on, people in the world who are acting like so like happy or whatever, but behind it all is they're pitiful. And he didn't want to be one of them, it seems like he's saying.
I really just looked over the lyrics as you were talking about From the Morning. So these are some of the lyrics. I can't think of words. I feel no emotion about anything. I don't want to laugh or cry. I'm numb, dead inside. And then there's a lyric that's from the song that's inscribed on his tombstone. Now we rise and we are everywhere. I mean, this is like
so sad.
Suicide note. That's so sad.
It could be. I don't know for sure. But the song before that, what's interesting is Harvest Breed is about pollination. So that song is about like pollen falling down to the ground and like pollinating flowers. And then the next song is this like, it's talking about the cycle of life, how even like in death, things still like rise again.
Well, look at somebody we lost that we both know very, very well. Brody Stevens, right?
Yeah.
Brody, we love, when they're alive, they're underappreciated for how much we care about them. Same thing with Angelo, same thing with, with fucking Taylor Hawkins, who just passed away, the drummer we all talked about, he's a great drummer. And then the second they die, it's like, there's this new life where we find their art. We appreciate it even more. We talk about them more. And it's like, they're almost, when they die too soon, it's not a good thing, but it's definitely the way we try to handle death is by going, oh, we'll get the love and love and love. And it's like, look at what happened. Brody is now being remembered as one of the greatest comics that's ever been at the Comedy Store for what he did in those late night sets. And the fact that we have any of them still on tape is incredible. And I mean, look, if Nick Drake doesn't die 2 years after making this record, are we sitting here talking about this record and how incredible it is and how moving it is? I don't think so.
It's a great question. I mean, and if Nick Drake had achieved recognition prior to writing this, would it be as good? That's where you run into the this fucked up paradox that appears in music and in a lot of different performative art forms, is the weird the way that the world is somehow capitalizing on the sorrow and suffering of the artist, like Elliott Smith. You can listen to Elliott Smith's music and not pay attention to the lyrics, and it's like, this is really beautiful, sweet, wonderful. But then when you listen to the fucking lyrics, it's like, oh my God, this guy is dying. Like, this is a person who is in the process of just falling apart, and yet, like, for worse rather than better, is so talented. You know what I mean? So they're so talented that it doesn't sound like a scream. No. It sounds like music, like beauty. And so in that, you can almost forget, like, well, you're listening to like an anguished wail, but it's a talented wail, and it can play guitar. And so in that, people, like, it's a really almost sick relationship that can appear, I think, between the artist and their audience. And I went to see Elliott Smith perform, and I remember, like, he couldn't stand up. He's sitting in a chair. He's all fucked up. I don't know what's going on. But the audience was like applauding it. Like, they liked it. They liked how here was like the tortured poet who was disintegrating in front of them. And as in that disintegration was sort of offering his life, his last breaths to the crowd. There's a vampiric relationship that appears accidentally there. That's so weird.
You ever watch I know we've talked about it a bunch on this podcast. We always talk about the best unplugged, and it's like, of course, everybody always wants to talk about Nirvana because he dies shortly after that, the way that he ended it, and it was, where did you sleep last night? And it's epic. But the one I always go back to is the one where the lead singer is like Kurt Cobain when he did Unplugged. Is he on heroin? Maybe, we're not sure. Alice in Chains, 100%. Lane Stanley walks out there wearing the biggest sweater because he's probably weighs 30 pounds underweight. And the second he walks out there, the crowd goes bananas for him. And I mean, he's wearing the sunglasses. His face looks like slimmed in. He just looks terrible. And it's this incredible performance, but we're literally watching a guy so close to death, and yet the audience is just like, fucking play Rooster. Like, we fucking love you.
This is where you run into the bizarre parallel that appears in performance and human sacrifice, because there's a wonderful essay by Aleister Crowley. I think it's called On the Bloody Ritual. It's an essay on human sacrifice through the, in various mythologies, world religions or whatever. Like, the human sacrifice shows up over and over again in the Bible. You've got God sending his son down to get sacrificed so the world can drink his blood to purify themselves. And then before that, you've got Isaac. I can't remember his father's name, where God tells this dad to go bring his son up to like sacrifice him on an altar. And then, of course, in a lot of other religions, you have human sacrifice. And then, of course, in various occult traditions, we hear about human sacrifice, and everyone's like, oh my God, it's fucking horrible that people would do that. And yet what we do as a culture is we take people, we celebrate them to the point that we kind of kill them, but not really. We give them the money they need for the drugs. We have these demands on them that they're going to be like doing show after show after show after show after show. We know they're mentally ill. We can hear it in the fucking lyrics, but we don't want them to treat themselves, because if they get better, they might not make the music that they're currently making. And so
Yeah.
there's a bizarre kind of luring the artist over the edge. And then when they do finally go over the edge, our hearts are broken and we look at each other like, oh my God, what have we done? As though, I mean, no, we don't go, what have we done? We go, what have they done? You
Yeah.
know, not, as though like
we don't take responsibility at all.
even
No.
though like the people in their circle and the people like who listen to their music and their agents and managers and everyone who is making money off of them, they kind of knew something's off here. Something
Yeah.
doesn't seem quite right.
Yeah.
You know, and something even more tragically, people try to help and it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And that's the other part that's really ultimately the most tragic part, is like, it really isn't anyone else's fault. It's their fault.
This is a weird question because I don't want to, if you're even comfortable naming names, but like you worked at the Comedy Store for so long, which is a harbor of the most talented people and then also the craziest people you're ever going to meet. And we've also, like I always say it, you know, what got me sober was being at the Comedy Store after a week-long binge on, like, you know, hardcore opiates, like, you know, oxymorphine and perk 30s and even heroin. And then I sobered up for 2 days. I go to the Comedy Store. Sam Tripoli sees me, and this is when he was, you know, fully in the 12-step and, you know, really dialed in before the pandemic. And he goes, you relapse again? And I go, no. I go, yeah, I relapse. And he's like, when are you going to stop, Josh? And I go, I don't know, man. Probably when I die. And he goes, okay. Or you're going to be that 50-year-old comic that's still hanging out at the Comedy Store that almost had a TV show. And then I look over and see that guy, because they're all over there. Dudes that drank themselves out of their career, that partied, that fucking didn't play enough by the rules. And, you know, like, you know, you can even say Patrice O'Neill. Like, I love Patrice so much. He's one of my favorite comics. He could have been, you know, in the discussion of one of the greatest comics alive if he just would have played the game. And I'm not saying he did right or wrong. He did exactly what he wanted to do.
Yeah.
But you worked at that place for so long. I mean, how many, like, was there any downfalls or anything in this kind of situation that that sticks with you?
Are you kidding, man? Yeah, I've seen so many comics die of self-destruct, you know. It's like so many. Brody's one of many comedians. It's from, like, if you think about like other professions and you like look at how many comedians die every year, generally like because of something they were doing to themselves, if not like outright suicide. You know, it's a very dangerous profession. And I, you know, I don't think it's drives people into mental illness. I just think it takes a specific type of personality to be like crazy enough to take up the career. I mean, it's think of the madness involved in like imagining that you're going to make a profession of getting on stage, telling jokes. And then imagine the madness and imagine that's going to work out for you, like just knowing the sheer statistical improbability. So I think the entry point into stand-up comedy requires a sort of madness, a beautiful madness just to get going, you know, and then to stick it out long enough to see any kind of results from the endeavor. That's a lot of late nights. That's a lot of pain. That's a lot of like questioning your entire like identity. Like, what the fuck am I doing? Why am I doing this? What is this? Like, how many people other than comedians and performers know what it feels like to have a room of hundreds of people hate you for 10 minutes or 15 minutes? How many people in their lives in a 15-minute period get the experience of 150, 200 strangers disliking them at the atomic level because they're off that night? How many? You know, like hopefully not many, but a comedian gets that. To learn how to be funny, you have to have that. It's almost like it's a terrible kind of sunlight you need to grow into yourself as a comedian. Because I mean, you're not going to get good if you're getting like laughs every time. You know, starting out as a comic, it's not going to work out for the first however long. So anyway. That being said, I think there are support mechanisms, and thank God for the 12-step people that are in the comedy scene, because they are really good at spotting someone when they're slipping and sliding downhill, and they will approach you, and they will try to help. They'll reach out, but if they're really in a 12-step program, they know there's nothing they can do. No, if there was, we would have no overdoses. We would have no alcoholism, because we would save all the alcoholics and all the drug addicts of the world with words. But isn't this the problem of the disease, right? Is that it requires like a higher power if you're going to save yourself, at least from the perspective of the 12-step programs.
Oh, I mean, I was with Brody that last 2 months before he passed away. I was at the Comedy Store doing a Saturday night gig every week. And it was really fun because I'd either be waiting or post show, and Brody would be there with Howard Kramer, and we would just laugh. And it was like, and I'd always been cool with Brody, and Howard I'd known in and out throughout the years of doing stand-up. But the three of us would just hang out and basically I hate to say it, like make fun of Brody's baseball or whatever the fuck it was. And Brody would rib back at us. And it was this great thing. And I'll be honest with you, he'd never seemed happier. He had never, every time I'd seen Brody, he seemed more positive. He seemed like he was like, you know, was his career where it was when he had the Zach Galifianakis TV show? No, but he's still working. He's still getting the spots. And then it's, you know, you're almost like leaving him like, dude, he's the best. He's doing great. And then fucking, I remember it was like maybe like a week or so later to get that call. And it's like, and all we do is just go like, did I contribute? Like what happened? Like could I have stopped this?
Yeah.
You know,
I've heard you can't stop it. I don't know if that's true, but I think like with certain types of mental illness, there's a progression that is, you know, someone gets like cancer, right? Yeah. And when a person with cancer finally dies, generally people aren't like, God, what if only I could have said something to stop the cancer? They're just sad. But when a person with depression finally dies, it ends their own life, or like accident, like puts themselves, like makes a series of decisions over and over that over time in their life. Everyone, I can't tell you how many people said to me, oh, I saw him, if only I could have said this, or if only I could have said that. And this is a really sweet idea. It's the dream of the magic words, you know, like there's a way to say magic words to someone to make them better. And I don't think there is. That's what's so terrifying about mental illness is maybe it's not that much different from any other progressive disease. Maybe, you know, this is something really creepy Camus would talk about, which is this idea of being undermined. It's like something can happen in your life. It's like the pebble that hits the windshield. Yeah. It's just a little crack. But then as you continue through life, the crack grows and grows and grows and grows until you're done. You're already dead. You're a dead man walking. And, you know, with Nick Drake, people were saying like he was gone, like he wasn't even there. If you look at the pictures in the album cover, you're seeing this person who's like clearly going through something fucked up. This is not a person trying to put on a like cool rock star, dissatisfied, unhappy face. This is a person who seems to be like haunted. And I think with Brody, part of what was going on with him was that he was having like big mood swings. And so you could run into him when he was up, or you could run in, and you probably weren't going to run into him when he was down, because he might not, he was like, So it would be easy to be around him when he's up and like think, oh, he's doing better or something. Also, a parallel between Nick Drake and Brody is they were both kind of struggling with like medication. You know, Nick Drake was taking antidepressants that he wasn't sure if he wanted to take. And this is the early days of antidepressants. And I know Brody was like, you know, always in this, like trying to figure out the dosages and you know, really, I think the difference between Nick Drake and Brody is that Brody was really trying, you know, like was really, really trying to like, he did up until I don't think he'd really given up until the very, very end. I don't even know what happened, but it feels like with Nick Drake, like even 2 years before he ended his own life, probably he was already starting to make the decision. in this out, and you can hear that in this album.
For sure. You know, it's. Let me see if I can get the right thought for this, which is, yeah, I listened to the record before I found out the story, and I remember I posted something on Twitter, which I do when it's like when a record really affects me from this list, and I go like, I'm today years old where I found out how beautiful Pink Moon by Nick Drake was.
Yeah.
And my buddy Eric from Meth Syndicate, who is a good buddy, listens to like hardcore, like fucking like Minor Threat, like the real, you know, dirty fucking bands. Like, you know, you go to a show and you come out disgusting and your shirt's ripped. But even he wrote to me just a text and he was like, dude, he's like, this is one of the most tragic stories in all of music and one of the most beautifully sad albums, you know. And then when you find out the story, and then I went back and basically everything we've just been talking about, like I just started reading to find out about him. And it's like, you know, you have to ask that question. It's like, if this guy isn't depressed, are we getting this record? Is his music,
right,
is it the depression that's fueling the music? Like, just like, remember,
exactly.
We keep bringing it back to Brody, which is like, if Brody's not this torn up person, is his stand-up the way that it is with positivity? Come on. Like, is he just saying that to himself just to get just to like kind of will himself out of this depression?
Dude, I'm telling you, this is what's so fucking scary about it, is like sometimes that's exactly what's happening, is you're hearing someone singing to themselves, trying to work it out. And we exist on so many levels, you know. We like, you can simultaneously be fully aware of the absurdity of reality and also like in love with existence itself. These two things can happen simultaneously.
Yeah.
They're not separate. Like, humans are such a mishmash of stuff. And you know, I think that's another thing that maybe some people aren't aware of is like, yeah, sometimes you might want to kill yourself. Sometimes I think any intelligent person who's suffering, who is, especially comedians, you know, we're so good at analyzing everything and deconstructing everything, you know. And so I think like anyone who's suffering, when you're coming up with lists of like, okay, how to stop this terrible pain that I'm experiencing just existing as a human on a planet, you'd have to be a real idiot to not have as one of those options, start taking your own life. And I think that there's it's been stigmatized to the point where if people are having suicidal ideations, they think, oh my God, what's going on with me? And then they hide that from the world. They don't want people to know they're thinking that. And that's where it starts. That's the satanic reality of depression, is that it invites you to be quiet about it. It's like, we don't need to talk to anyone about this. What's the point? And then that's where the spiral starts, because now, I think as long as you're telling people, sometimes I think I want to kill myself. I'm never going to do it, but from time to time, I think this fucking sucks. Bill Burr's got one of my favorite suicide jokes. I don't want to repeat it here because I don't want to fuck up his joke, but it's an incredible joke about suicidal ideation. And anyway, my point is, this is what sucks about depression, is it invites you to stay quiet and give up. And I think in Pink Moon, we're hearing that. We're hearing someone, because, you know, I think Road is theoretically a song about, you know, what road are you going to take? And he's saying like, you can take the path of the sun if you want to, but I can see the moon and it seems so clear. I can see the road that will see me through. And I think for him, that road was fucking death. And so in that, you're hearing him just say like, yeah, there's a binary here, and if you want to try the whole sun fucking road or whatever, I guess, but for me, this is what I've begun to realize. It's really fucked up, man. And again, you have the moon, the reference to the moon here, and you know, the other like I'm sure he's aware of the fact that the moon is like illuminated by the sun. It's a reflection of the sun's light. And I think in these songs you hear him tortured by the sick relationship he was having to have with the world that he felt was so like kind of corrupted. You know, like you hear in some of these songs like Free Ride. This is you hear him like saying like, I know you are, I see what you're a fucking pig, I see like what a simple pig world this is, and yet will you feed me, will you give me, or like I still depend on you, so he was seemingly tortured by that sick relationship that he had to have with the world, who he seemingly is judged as being not a great fucking place.
Did you notice this when you said in college you got this, right?
Yeah.
Did you notice this immediately, or is this something that took? Of course.
No, man. I just thought it was a pretty fucking album until I had to do your fucking podcast, and I start researching it. I'm like, Jesus Christ, this is horrible. What did we do? Why did I pick this? That's why when you're like, man, I feel it's all about love, I feel so good, I'm like sitting here in my fucking studio like, Jesus Christ, what did I feel like I looked into a book of black magic or something. I really like. But I think that's what the genius of the thing. And to get back to that idea of a polarity, or this dynamic between the sun and the moon, light and dark, life and death, that's what this album's all about. And the genius of it is you can hear either side that you want in it. And that's what's so cool about it.
Yeah. I didn't notice it. I really didn't notice it until my buddy, I guess it was one of those things where it was like, I kept hearing Nick Drake. I think the first time I really heard it was probably the Volkswagen commercial, which was so popular.
That was hilarious to me. The Volkswagen commercial. I remember sitting in my house and being like, well, why didn't you just go take a shit on his grave, Volkswagen? You should have just gone and like driven a fucking Volkswagen over his grave. This is when they were like putting the stupid flower thing on the stupid Volkswagen.
Yeah.
Nick Drake's song about like, you're all fucked. You're all going to die, no matter how great you think you may be in this life. You're all going to have to face this fucking absurdity or death or whatever he's saying. In Pink Moon, it's too cool for the party. Do you remember that commercial? These assholes walk up to some party that they've probably been invited to. They look at it. They're like, oh, no. We're not going to do this. We're not going in this party. There's a keg here. Let's go drive in our shitty Volkswagen and listen to Nick Drake. And they smugly drive off with Pink Moon playing. And it's like, this is like, oh my God, this is exactly why I think there's Satan, this
is Camus. It's the ridiculousness of this world, is that you take this song that he wrote in the most tragic part of his life, where he is just dealing with inner demon, where his own head is telling him the most depressing, horrible thoughts that's making him say, I got to kill myself. And Volkswagen's like, cabriolets. We're selling cabriolets with this with the one song that is probably the thing that he'll be remembered for forever.
Now, if the commercial had ended with a couple driving off a cliff, then they would have understand the album.
Or just gets hit by a Mack truck. They're just like, I should have known that. But this is like airbags.
This is one of the weird realities of default reality. It's going to echo anything that's good. And over time, the echoes will become increasingly corrupt until it basically becomes the opposite of whatever the musician or artist intended. I mean, this is like the way, this is like what do they call it? The law of thermodynamics, entropy. This is I don't remember which law it is. And I just said that because I like to say things where I seem smart, and I
sounds right.
I say bifurcated too. I don't know the laws of thermodynamics, but I know one of them is something to do with entropy, and entropy is something that happens not just in like energetic systems, like a ball rolling or whatever, or it also happens with art. And when you see like that level of entropy with the Volkswagen commercial, it's horrifying. And you wonder, is this what caused him to kill himself? Did he have like some dream where he saw the Volkswagen commercial in the future and was like, you know what? I'm going to take too many antidepressants. I'm done. There's no point. Anything I even create that's good in this world is eventually going to be corrupted to the point that it's thrown back out at the world in the opposite of what it was intended.
Adam, can you find out how much his family got paid for that Volkswagen commercial? Because I would love to know, like, because I get it. Like, look, he obviously had nothing to do with it. He's been dead for, 30
Yeah,
years or 25 years since when that
yeah,
came out, from the time the song was written. He didn't make a lot of money. Here, I have a little, like, just so the listeners are going to say, because there's always going to be someone who's like, you barely talked about Nick and who he was. So here's a little hubbub on him. He was 26 when he died in 1974. English singer, songwriter, guitar, acoustic guitar based songs, born in Burma. Family moves to England when he's 2. Both parents wrote music. Recordings with his mother Molly, which have come to light since her death, are similar in tone and outlook to the later work of her son. He learned to play piano at an early age, began to compose songs, which he recorded on a reel-to-reel tape recorder that she kept in the family living room. I'm going to skip over some stuff. It was during this time later in Cambridge that he discovered and became influenced by Bob Dylan, Donovan, and Van Morrison. I hear all of them
yeah.
in his music 100%. He started smoking weed, playing guitar. He does his first record, 5 Leaves Left, in 69. His sister Gabrielle said in an interview he was very secretive. She knew he was making a record, but didn't know what it was basically about. Then his second record, I'm going to fuck this up, Brighter Later, in 71. It's also a commercial failure. And then he's got a reluctance to perform live or be interviewed. Yeah, there's like no pictures of him.
Yeah.
The pictures that you see are like far away.
Yeah.
It's like like, I hate to say, like, fucking like CCTV type shit. Like he was just walking by, like, that's Nick Drake. That's Nick Drake. Get it. Put it on the album cover. Put it on the album. While opening for Fairport Convention for a few shows in 69, he had a bad experience performing live. Hold on. Peter, you might want to cut this out. Adam, is any of the rest of this shit worth reading, or am I just wasting time?
No, you're covering most of it, and I don't have the sales figure, but I have how many copies of the album.
All right, here, hold that for a second. Let me just pick this up. Hold on, give me 1 second. They completely missed the point. Didn't say a word the entire evening. So basically, he has this bad performance, and he cuts away from that. He would pause during performing some of the songs, so then he just goes back to the drawing board.
He had to retune his guitar. He like had weird fucking tunings, so like his shows were clumsy because in between songs he had to spend a lot of time retuning his guitar.
Yeah, it says right here, and I quote, "It was actually quite painful to watch."
Yeah.
Which I could see somebody that doesn't want to be. I mean, we've seen it, dude. How many potluckers have we seen go up at the Comedy Store, and it's only 3 minutes, and they failed 2 seconds in and cannot recover, and yet we still have another 2 minutes and 45 seconds to watch them.
Yeah.
And it's like, it's the worst. It's also, if it's one of your buddies, it's also the best. Watching one of your friends bomb.
But you know what's weird about Nick Drake? A lot of people don't talk about this. He's a very funny comedian.
Really?
Yeah, he had
Hey guys. Hey. Hello.
He must have been. It must have just been like he was so shy. He was so sensitive, and yet he was so good. He was such a talented person. I mean, this terrible collision happens sometimes, and it really is brutal. It's like, you can't just, I think if he had been born now, where he could like use Ableton, throw together his own shit, not even have to go to the studio, just upload stuff on SoundCloud, he probably would have been like an obscure artist who stayed alive, who wasn't so depressed. I think like that's one of the glorious qualities of the time that we're in, is you can now have that personality and still publish stuff. You won't be probably as successful as you might be if you go on the road, but at least you can have the outlet of knowing people are listening to what you're creating. Back then, just think about it, man. You had to fucking perform. Yeah. And you had to perform at a time where people were used to, like, I think in those days, like the type of folk music people were used to is not this like weird, depressing lo-fi shit. Like they were into like I don't know, like, well, Donovan and stuff, it's
Yeah.
kind of upbeat. Donovan's at shows, supposedly like it was raining at one of his concerts and like he made it stop raining. You have like that level of like mystical folk singer.
Yeah.
She's like farting rainbows. And then you've got depressed Nick Drake getting up in front of a crowd who's like hoping for Donovan or the Birds or whatever. He's up there like weeping as he's retuning his guitar. People are probably booing. He's sensitive, you know what I mean? And then he just shuffles off and like finally he hits the point where he's like, look, it's just you and me. We're gonna do this album at midnight for 2 days. That's what happened to him. It was just he was sort of born too soon.
Yeah, and you'd said something earlier about how he's being treated with depression medication before they figured out how to treat people with depression medication. I don't know if you have, but recently I had a friend who had a bipolar incident, and she goes to the hospital and she came out and they're fiddling with that sweet spot to get her to be normal. And for like months, she was sleepy. For other months, she was like catatonic, and then she was too high energy. And it was just like you're trying to balance that, and that takes months and months of like upping and lowering the dosage to get them right. And now she's back to normal. But there were months where it was like she's around people, and it's making us uncomfortable because of we know, but it's also they almost like when you're figuring out medications, it's like you almost have like there's like a moment of like where you're acting like somebody with Asperger's, which there's nothing wrong with somebody with Asperger's, but they're always they can say something.
Back then it wasn't like that. But I mean, back then, like there, like even now, obviously there's an incredible stigma when it comes to having any kind of what now they're calling neurodivergence, which I think is a very sweet thing. It's an acknowledgement of like not everyone's brain works the same, but back then they would call it crazy, and then it evolved to mental illness, and then it evolved to neurodivergence. But back then there was a real stigma associated with any kind of any kind of mental illness, and so he wanted to hide. It wasn't just like the depression wants you to hide, society wants you to hide. Put on a smile and like to be taking SSRIs or whatever he was taking. I don't know if it was an SSRI, but to be taking an antidepressant in those days was even more stigmatized than it is now. Yeah. That's what's so fucked up. You could smoke weed all day long. You could be like slurping fucking ayahuasca smoothies every single day. People are like, that's fucking awesome. Yeah. You tell anybody you're on antidepressants and people are like, oh, really? Okay, well, good for you. But there's a little bit of judgment there. It was a million times worse back then. And God, and I don't even know if they knew about dialing shit in. They were probably just giving him these, I don't even know what the fucking pills were. Big
lithium. I could say lithium, probably. Lithium.
Probably look it up.
Yeah. Adam, two things. I say did you find out how much he got paid for Pink Moon?
So I did not find out how much he got paid for Pink Moon, but you can read into the number of copies sold. 6,000 in the United States before the Volkswagen commercial, 74,000 that year, and then over the next 4 years jumped to 329,000 copies.
Wow.
Oh, but that's how much it should have sold back then. Like that's like, like you said, dude, it's like he wrote it, he was awkward, he couldn't tour, so nobody knows who the fuck he is. It takes this ad agency guy at fucking whatever company worked with Volkswagen to go, this is a great song, I want to use it for something. Because how many times have we been listening to a song and been like, if I do a movie, this song is opening the movie. Yeah. And look, I have no qualms at all with his family getting paid and him deserving what he deserves for making this record. I mean this sincerely when I say it, listeners. This might be my favorite record that I didn't know about before doing this podcast. And it's like, this is a record I'm going to listen to for the rest of my life. And I was lucky enough to go see, I go see Billy Joel once a month at Madison Square Garden. It's been my thing.
Wow.
Like I take mushrooms, I eat about 3 grams, I go by myself. I get a good seat and I just fucking enjoy myself. And
that's cool, man.
It's the best, dude. And you want to talk about a more positive place to be, it's only 50 and 70-year-olds in the audience. So nobody's going to fight. There's not going to be weird energy.
Yeah.
It's Billy Joel. So every song is about love or great. And Billy's such a positive, energetic person. So he's only putting out like good vibes. And after the show, on the walk home, this last one, I was tripping balls. I don't know how it hit me so hard. And I put on my headphones and I put this record in, and I just started walking home from, 34th or whatever, 32nd Street down to my place on the east side on 22nd. And it's like just this feeling of like, because I could look past the sadness and see the beauty.
Yeah.
Every one of those songs, dude, I'm telling you, Parasite is such a depressing song. It is one of the most beautiful songs I've ever heard in my life.
That's it. See, that to me is the genius of the thing, is like, and if only he could have seen himself in that way. And this is the other trap of depression. You hate yourself. This is the problem of it, is like, this is the tragedy of it, is that all he had to do was shift out of that, and like out of the dark part of the thing that wrote the lyrics, and shift just a few inches outside of himself, enough to hear the beauty in his own suffering, recognize that, then I think he would have finally been able to really love himself, and would have solved the problem he was trying to solve in this album in a way that didn't involve killing himself. I mean, this is something that like Ram Dass used to say in the old days, and then he changed it because it sounds too severe and could be too misunderstood. But he would say like, I love myself to death, is what he would say. He was talking about this possibility of no longer being so compressed into yourself that you only are the like rotten stuff that you think you're doing, or your guilt, or your past crimes, or whatever it is, and just shifting out a little bit and seeing. And he would say like, look at your life like a flower. It's a beautiful, unique, incredible flower, and you can love that thing. And so, what you're talking about when you're hearing the beauty in his music, that's the love part. That's the part that without that, it would be shit. With that, if you take these lyrics and, make them just someone bemoaning their own existence, they might be a little poetic, but his voice, the pain, all of it is somehow like simultaneously redemptive, and he just couldn't see that. I think he couldn't see it. Same with Brody, same with any of these people that we've lost. For whatever reason, they couldn't see it. They couldn't see their own beauty. They couldn't see their own light. They only felt the darkness, and that to me is why it's such a brilliant name for the album.
For the record,
the Pink Moon. You're naming your fucking album, after like the first full moon in spring, but also the acknowledgement of like, the no matter what, the moon can only reflect the sun's light, and similarly, Nick Drake, like he couldn't see his own light. It's so fucking, it's so disturbing and sad. Yeah.
And there's so many people, I get it all the time from listeners where they're like, oh, this happened. And, your podcast makes me forget about, the pain that I'm dealing with. And it's like, you just want to be like, dude, but it's like, I love that. But like, there's so much, even when it's bad, it's still good. You just have to see it's, you guys, if you sit in love, if you lead with love, even in the worst times, it's never that bad. And I hate to be like, there's always somebody worse off. And just thinking that is what takes you out of it. Cause there always is. There's Nick Drake. He's a brilliant songwriter. He's probably has people saying to him, you are brilliant. You are a genius. Just keep doing it. Keep doing it. It will pop, and I get it. I get how that feels to make a record or put something out there that you care about with love, and the audience just being like, I don't, whatever. But it's like, there's like, you just keep putting that love into the music.
Well, maybe that's the problem, right? Like he like if you're making something hoping that people are going to like it, you're already fucked, right? Like, because your reasoning is all weird and you're trying to like turn into some kind of like love magnet or something like that. I mean, not that that's a weird. I want any
We all
fucking.
want love.
We need that. We love
Yeah.
but also it can't be the only reason. And if you care about that too much, then you get diverted or something, and like it can be quite dangerous, in fact, to be too hungry for that. But yeah, man, I think the anytime I've been able to not try to explain my own suffering, anytime I've been able to just feel it as it is without saying, oh, I'm suffering because of this or that, or here's why I'm upset, or here's what's bugging me, but just feel the suffering itself, there's a real beauty and clarity to it. Like, because part of being depressed or part of being out of balance or whatever is a kind of confusion. You feel confused, foggy, but your pain, if you just spend any time with it at all, you'll realize, oh my God, this is so clear. This is so bright and so like, what's the word? Perfect. Your suffering is perfect. And then you realize, oh fuck, the thing that I'm running away from or hoping will leave me is actually perfect and clear. And in that clarity and the imperfection of our suffering, there's enlightenment. Like that's your enlightened mind. Actually, there's something in that, or at least in the awareness of your own suffering, that is weirdly, paradoxically, the complete opposite of.
It's what Eckhart Tolle talks about with the pain body. It's like, it's the comfort. Like we can sit in that, we can sit in our pain and it's like, oh, I know this feeling, and it feels warm, and it's like, beating yourself up, regardless if it's the worst thing you can do, it feels okay. We talk harder about ourselves than anybody else does in our minds.
Oh my God, people are so cruel to themselves, and it's amazing. It's so fucked up when you think about like some of the shit that you say to yourself. Like the other day, I walked in front of the mirror and I looked at myself with my shirt off and I go, "You stupid fat fuck!" It just popped out of my head, man. Like, you know what I mean? It was like the first thing out of my mouth, and I caught it though. Like, and I'm like, normally I think I just do that unconsciously and then go get dressed. But I caught it. I'm like, why? What are you doing? Why are you saying that to yourself? Like, why would you? What benefit is there from this ridiculous war with your own identity? And so I think the invitation from all the wisdom traditions is like surrender. Like, you're not going to win that war. Like, if you're at war with yourself, if you're, you know what I mean? If you're fighting yourself, if you've made this horrific decision that you are fucked up, and this is where it's really tragic with a lot of depressed people, is they think they're fucked up, but they think other people are doing great, or they really love other people.
Yeah.
But the problem is, like, that kind of love, if you hate yourself, how can you love anything really? Like the love you feel for the world is going to always be shadowed by that self-hate. So you really do have to figure out a way to just love yourself and really love, like, not fake love yourself either.
Like really love, genuinely. Because dude, it's, the one thing I love about podcasting is that it's been such therapy for me, where I've gone on other podcasts and told these stories about things that I've done in my life that I carry that baggage around as pain because of mistakes I've made, DUIs, things I've said to girls, things I've said to guys, my parents, blah, 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 blah. And you tell it on a podcast and listeners hear it and then they go, that's the greatest story I've ever heard. And it's so funny. And thank you for telling it because it brought so much enjoyment to me. And then that negativity that you carried around suddenly becomes this positive where you're like, oh my God, if I never was a fuck up the first 26 years of my life, then I wouldn't be doing so well on this podcast. And now it's like you flip the script on the pain and now it's positive. That took years for me to get. And now I do stuff like, after talking to you and going to a guru for, the last 5 years, where it's like meditation and acting classes and just, reading. Like I'm at a place now at 42. It took literally 38 years of my life to figure out how to be happy and how to love myself.
Amazing. A lot of people, I mean, generally people don't
ever.
It's so fucking weird, isn't it? I mean, it's like, how is this possible that there sometimes when I'm really being hard on myself, I'll just think, who's being hard on who here?
Yeah.
Like what, what is the thing that, like, if it's a common thing and weirdly celebrated in some circles to hate yourself. And so, but when someone says, I hate myself, it's really an interesting thing to say, in the sense it's like, okay, well, who is the thing hating and who is the self, right? Like, you've already divided yourself into this strange thing, which, by the way, usually the thing that you're hating, it's a figment of your imagination anyway. Like, you're literally like, whatever you hate yourself because whatever, you fucked up, you did some stupid thing, you got a DUI, you did horrible things, and all of your, in Christianity they call it sin, but like, most of that stuff is just stories you're telling yourself. Other people would tell a completely different story. You have a foggy memory anyway by the time you're our age and have done as many drugs as we have. So you don't remember shit anyway. Like, just think, you don't remember what you ate 3 days ago, but somehow some event that happened years ago, you feel like, no, I know that was like a horrible thing that I did. Really? You really think you have an accurate memory of that? And P.S., whoever the fuck was doing that back then is not you now. That was a completely different person who was doing the best they could, by the way. It's not like back then when you did whatever you did, you were like, I'm going to do the most malicious shit ever. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to get fucking hammered and drive and get a DUI or whatever the fuck. The crimes that you've been accusing yourself of your whole life. That was a different person anyway. So who the fuck are you holding on trial? And who's the judge, right? Like, what are you doing? There's not even a thing that you're holding on. There's not even a thing to carry the burden of whatever your crimes are, other than some imaginary construct that you have to constantly rebuild every morning when you wake up and decide you're going to habitually hate yourself.
It's so much work.
Too much work
to hate
Too
yourself.
much work. Just eat mushrooms. Go to Billy Joel and forget all the rest. Just do that. That's the answer. I think you figured it out, man. You might have like started a new world religion. The sacrament being mushrooms, the church being Billy Joel.
Dude, it's real. It is real love every time I go,
older
man.
People, they're looking at you like, what the fuck? You're high. They know you're high, right? Because they're probably high too.
I'm not like acting weird, but there was a moment where I was like, because the second it started, I'm up dancing, and I'm in a very nice row of where the tickets are probably $300. I got hooked up through Live Nation this show, but usually I'm going to spend at least $250 so I could get down lower bowl close to the stage. I want to see it. And I vape, and I hit the vape, and I blow the smoke up because it's a concert. The lights are off. No one's going to see me.
No one's going to care.
And the security guard taps me on the shoulder, and I mean, I am deep down on the lower level. So this guy, somebody had to tell this guy.
Oh,
he taps me on my shoulder. He goes, "Hey man, you can't vape in here." I go, "Oh, I'm so sorry." He goes, "Also, no one else is standing behind you, so you can't stand." And I just look at him and I'm like, it's a fucking concert. Like, and I just look at them and I go, "Get up." And they just, and I'm just like, whatever. I'm fucking. So I sat for like 2 seconds, and then he played like Zanzibar, and I was fucking just, I got a brand new screw. Just, it's like, so
you can't fucking do that, man. A lot of these people have had hip replacements and stuff. You got to sit, man. These people are like, there's a reason they're not standing up. You're forgetting. They're not in a young body. They're not on mushrooms. They're on benzos.
And then, if just in case anybody wants, Beck, one of my favorite artists, covered this album. But yeah, he covers Pink Moon, Witch Will, and Parasite. He did it in 2005. Check. That's it. All right, rapid questions.
Great.
What's your favorite song on the record?
From the Morning, the last track.
I'm gonna do Parasite, but I do love Pink Moon, man. I really do love Pink Moon. Lee's favorite track on the album.
Probably, hold on. I've got it listed here. I like all of them. But I don't know, man. That's hard to say. I don't know. I honestly, I don't. It's, if I had to pick, I'm just making something up because I like all of it. But probably Things Behind the Sun, I didn't like that much. I don't even know why. I have no reason for that, but I did like it. I mean, I don't know if it's like asking which of like all of these
Yeah.
great things suck. They're all pretty good, but Things Behind the Sun, whatever, I didn't like it.
No, I get it. All right. What song on this record would you fuck to?
That's first of all, like, I think like You Definitely Know Me Well, because these are short songs. I'm gonna go.
Dude.
I guess I'm gonna go for the shortest one. I don't know which it is. What do we got? Is there a minute song on here?
Minute 37, Harvest Breed.
There we go.
That's it.
Perfect. It's got breed in the title.
Well, according to this dude, I don't know where I saw it, but he said the perfect amount of sex is 15. No, it was 15, 15, 30. So it's an hour of sex, 15 minutes of male cunnilingus, 15 minutes of female cunnilingus, and then a half hour of actual sex. So this will get you through the first part.
That's the thing Nick Drake heard that finally drove him to suicide.
Yeah, he's like, all right, I can just tell.
He's like, I'm done.
30 years from now,
I'm done.
And then we have a couple Patreon questions. We got which ones are worth asking, Adam? This is from Tim. I heard someone once say that since Nick Drake died early and with almost no interviews left behind, he never really got a chance to comment on his art, which makes his albums a sort of blank canvas for us to interpret how we like.
That's cool.
How do you think Nick would have evolved, and do you think his early work would be as critically praised today if he were alive longer?
Yeah, that's a great question. I think he could have gone one of two ways. Like, think of Syd Barrett, like early Pink Floyd. That shit was so good. So simple, a little like sillier than Nick Drake and a little crazier, like a more mania in it, but still it had this simplicity that was so psychedelic. But then look at what happened with him. Syd Barrett, he slowly unraveled. I think Nick Drake, that if he had managed to stick around, I think he probably, whatever he was making would have potentially become increasingly incoherent. And then he would just stop making music and become some kind of recluse. That's one possible path. And I think the other possible path is that somewhere along the way, the thing might happen to him that has happened to any of us who have managed to make it out of a depression, which is like all of a sudden things get a little better and a little better. And you realize, holy shit, I was so depressed. Oh my God, I can't believe it. Because when you're super depressed, you don't even know it. And then when you start emerging from it, it's like, wow, I survived that. And then in that, there's a kind of newfound stability that can really, at least for me, like anytime I find myself sinking down into the blues, I can remember like, okay, I know this place, but I also know I always come out of it. So maybe whatever the next album he was making could be more of an acknowledgement of the possibility of resurrection and of getting better, or it would have just sucked because he got too fucking happy. I think he played saxophone. He could have just turned into like shitty fucking saxophone music and cheery fucking lyrics and embarrassing. And then no one listens to his old shit because his new shit sucks.
That's perfect. Dude, this was great. Promote away. Anything you want to promote?
Oh, just my podcast. And I've got a lot of dates coming up, of which are at duncantrussell.com. If you want to see me do stand-up. Go see him, everybody. Duncan, please come back. Thanks. Anytime, man. Thanks for having me on. It's been a real pleasure. Thanks a lot. And I want to go to Billy Joel with you one day.